Here we are, diving deep into the story of Qantas Flight 32. And before we can even consider the mid-air drama and the heroic actions of the crew, we have to understand the root cause. The seed of near disaster, if you will. Today we dissect the ominous discovery. A microscopic flaw in production becomes a catastrophic weakness. Behind every spectacular failure, behind every near miss that grabs headlines, there's often a quiet, unassuming beginning. A seemingly insignificant detail that, under the right conditions, can snowball into something truly terrifying. And that's precisely what we're talking about here. A tiny crack. An almost imperceptible flaw that ultimately brought the world's largest passenger plane to its knees. The story begins not in the air, not over the skies of Indonesia, but on the factory floor. A place where precision is paramount, where tolerances are measured in microns, and where every component is scrutinized to ensure its integrity. But even in the most meticulously controlled environments, mistakes can happen. Human error, machine malfunction, a momentary lapse in judgment. Any of these can introduce a weakness into the system. In this case, the weakness originated within the heart of one of the aircraft's 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engines. These engines, marvels of engineering in their own right, are complex systems containing thousands of individual parts. Each part plays a critical role, and even a minor defect in one component can have cascading consequences for the entire engine. The faulty part in question was a stub oil feed pipe. This small, seemingly insignificant tube is responsible for delivering oil to the engine's bearings, crucial for lubricating the rotating parts and preventing catastrophic friction. Think of it as the engine's circulatory system, ensuring that vital lubrication reaches all the essential organs. Now, these pipes are manufactured to extremely precise specifications. They're drilled to a specific diameter, with walls of a specific thickness, all meticulously controlled to withstand the immense pressures and temperatures within a jet engine. However, during the manufacturing process, something went wrong. It appears that the drilling process was slightly misaligned, ever so slightly off-center. The drilling resulted in a wall with a slight asymmetry. One side of the pipe wall remained perfectly within the design specification, but the other side, critically, was thinner than it should have been. How much thinner are we talking? We're not talking about gaping holes or obvious deformities. We're talking about a fraction of a millimeter. A difference so subtle that it might escape even the most rigorous visual inspection. But in the unforgiving environment of a jet engine, even the smallest deviation from the norm can have devastating effects. Imagine this pipe, operating within the engine's inferno, subjected to enormous pressures and constant vibration. The thinner section of the pipe wall becomes a stress concentrator, a weak point where fatigue begins to accumulate with each flight cycle. Every takeoff, every climb, every cruise subjects the pipe to stress. And with each cycle, the microscopic weakness grows. The metal, constantly expanding and contracting due to the temperature changes, starts to succumb. Initially, it's just a micro crack, an imperceptible flaw at the atomic level, something that exists more as a theoretical imperfection than a visible defect. But over time, this tiny crack begins to propagate, slowly widening and deepening with each passing flight. It's a gradual process, a silent erosion of the metal's integrity. It would be almost impossible to detect without specialized equipment and techniques, and is certainly imperceptible to the naked eye. And that's precisely what makes this story so chilling. The insidious nature of the flaw. It was a ticking time bomb, A hidden weakness that was slowly but surely working its way towards a catastrophic failure, adding another layer of concern to the situation. It seems that the standard quality control checks failed to catch this imperfection somewhere along the line, either at the Rolls-Royce factory or during subsequent inspections. The misaligned drilling slipped through the cracks. The stub oil pipe, with its critical weakness, was installed in the engine, destined to face the pressures of countless flights. Think about the implications. This wasn't just a one-off incident. It meant that other engines, manufactured around the same time, could potentially harbor the same defect. It cast a shadow of doubt over the entire production batch, raising serious concerns about the reliability and safety of the Trent 900 engines powering A380s around the world. This entire situation is a stark reminder that perfection in aviation is not merely desirable. It's absolutely essential. Every part, no matter how small, must meet the highest standards of quality and precision. The consequences of failure can be catastrophic, as we will see. A tiny crack like this has the potential to bring down a giant. The flawed stub oil pipe continued to operate for an unknown number of flights, each one bringing it closer to its breaking point, until November 4, 2010. When Qantas Flight 32 took off from Singapore, unknowingly carrying a ticking time bomb within one of its engines. The environment of a jet engine spinning at thousands of RPMs, enduring unimaginable forces and incredible temperatures, is relentless. Eventually, the inevitable happened. The thin section of the pipe, weakened by years of stress, finally gave way. The consequences would be devastating. A chain reaction of failures that would push the crew of Flight 32 to their absolute limits. The world would soon find out about the tiny crack that almost spelled disaster. At 7,000 feet, the world's biggest passenger plane had just been sucker punched. Passengers heard two distinct, violent bangs coming from the left side of the aircraft. Not the kind of bangs you want to hear when you're suspended thousands of feet in the air, hurtling through the sky at hundreds of miles per hour. Inside the cockpit, a symphony of alarms erupted, blinking red warnings across the electronic displays. An orchestra of impending doom. The Airbus A380, a behemoth of the skies, lurched violently to the left. A clear and terrifying sign that something had gone catastrophically wrong with one of its four engines. This wasn't a minor hiccup, a simple malfunction. This was a full-blown crisis unfolding at breakneck speed. What had started as a routine flight over the skies of Singapore was rapidly descending into a desperate battle for survival. Captain Richard Champion de Crespigny, a veteran pilot with over 15,000 hours under his belt, immediately took control. Years of training and experience kicked in, as he calmly and methodically began to assess the situation. His crew, a team of highly skilled professionals, sprang into action, their faces etched with concern, but their movements precise and focused. The initial signs pointed to engine number 2, the innermost engine on the left wing. The Engine Control and Monitoring System, or ECAM, a crucial diagnostic tool, reported overheating in the turbine. Simultaneously, the auto-throttle system for that engine failed, forcing the pilots to revert to manual thrust control. This was like losing a vital limb. The automated system, designed to maintain precise speed and power, was now defunct, placing an additional burden on the pilots. Almost instantaneously, a brief fire warning flashed on the screen, quickly disappearing as if it were a cruel joke. Had there been a fire? Was it contained? The ambiguity was unnerving. Every second counted. and the crew had no time for guesswork. Following the emergency checklist, the first officer pulled back the thrust lever for engine number 2 to idle, waiting the prescribed 30 seconds, hoping against hope that the problem would resolve itself. But this was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Captain de Crespigny, his voice calm but laced with urgency, transmitted a pan-pan call to air traffic control. Pan-pan, repeated 3 times, is the internationally recognized urgency signal, indicating a problem that isn't yet a full-blown emergency, but requires immediate attention. He calmly informed controllers of their situation, requesting assistance and instructing them to maintain radio silence to allow the crew to focus on the rapidly escalating crisis. Beneath the captain's controlled demeanor, tension was building. The uncertainty surrounding the fire warning, the failed auto-throttle, the lurching of the aircraft, all pointed to a far more serious problem than a simple engine malfunction. As the crew attempted to activate the engine fire extinguishers, another chilling discovery: neither of the bottles responded. This critical safety system, designed to suppress any potential engine fire, was non-operational. It was a gut-wrenching moment, a clear indication that the failure was far deeper and more complex than anyone had initially imagined. What had begun as a localized engine issue was rapidly morphing into a cascading chain reaction, threatening to engulf the entire aircraft. In the passenger cabin, near the windows, some passengers witnessed the unthinkable. A gaping hole had ripped open in the left wing, and fuel was gushing out, streaming into the open air like a river of liquid gold. Panic began to set in as some passengers reported flashes of flame near the wing root, the point where the wing attaches to the fuselage. It was a nightmare scenario unfolding thousands of feet above the ground, trapping hundreds of people in a giant metal tube. At 30,000 pounds of pressure, flight attendants, trained to handle emergencies, attempted to reassure the passengers, their smiles strained, their voices betraying a hint of fear. But the sight of fuel spewing from the wing was difficult to ignore. Passengers desperately tried to contact the cockpit, their calls going unanswered, not because the crew was ignoring them, but because they were drowning in a relentless deluge of system alerts, each one more alarming than the last. Back in the cockpit, the ECAM screen became a chaotic, flashing display of warnings. The pilots struggled to keep up, their eyes darting from one alert to another, their hands flying across the controls, desperately trying to diagnose the problems and implement the necessary procedures. In the minutes following the initial explosion, they counted over 80 separate alerts. 80. A workload that would overwhelm even the most experienced pilots. It was a sensory overload, a test of their training, their skill, and their ability to remain calm under immense pressure. One by one, the pilots realized that 21 out of 22 major aircraft systems had been affected. Hydraulics were leaking, electrical circuits were failing, fuel tanks were losing pressure, and several control surfaces, the critical components that allow the pilots to steer the aircraft, no longer responded. This was the kind of catastrophic scenario that no simulator could fully replicate. A pilot's worst nightmare unfolding in agonizing real time. At this point, the crew didn't know the root cause of the disaster, only the brutal and terrifying consequences. Engine number 2 had essentially exploded, self-destructed in a violent and catastrophic manner. Fragments of metal, propelled with unimaginable force, had pierced the wing, ripping through fuel tanks and severing critical wiring. The damage had left the aircraft in a state of extreme fragility, where even the smallest mistake could have devastating consequences. With 469 lives hanging in the balance, hesitation was not an option. As the crippled jet circled in a holding pattern east of Singapore, the cockpit transformed into a war room, a place of intense focus, rapid decision-making, and unwavering determination. Should they attempt an immediate landing with a severely damaged aircraft, risking a catastrophic collapse on the runway? Or should they remain airborne, buying themselves time to work through the seemingly endless checklists, desperately trying to understand which systems were still functional and how to best utilize them? The stakes were impossibly high. The captain's calm voice, crackling over the intercom, reassured passengers that the plane was stable. But inside the cockpit, the reality was far grimmer. They were engaged in a desperate fight for survival, battling a storm of malfunctions, pushing their skills and the limits of the aircraft to the absolute breaking point. Meanwhile, down below, unbeknownst to the crew, pieces of the shattered engine had rained down over Batam Island in Indonesia. Metal fragments had pierced roofs, smashed into cars, and even landed in a schoolyard. By some miracle, no one on the ground was injured. But news reports quickly spread rumors that a Qantas Super Jumbo had crashed. For those living under the falling debris, it already felt like a disaster. For those in the sky, it was a disaster still unfolding. Second by agonizing second, the dust had settled, the shredded engine replaced, and the stock prices cautiously rebounded. But the real story of Qantas Flight 32 wasn't about markets or metal. It was about the human spirit, the rigorous investigation that followed, and the ripple effect it had on the future of aviation safety. The immediate aftermath on the ground in Singapore was a whirlwind of activity. Emergency crews swarmed the A380, meticulously examining the damage and ensuring the aircraft was secure. Passengers, still shaken but immensely relieved, disembarked, some clutching their carry-ons, others embracing loved ones who had rushed to the airport. The media frenzy was instant and intense, with images of the crippled Super Jumbo splashed across news outlets worldwide. But amidst the chaos and the flashing cameras, a crucial process began. The investigation. Australia's Transport Safety Bureau, or ATSB, launched a full-scale inquiry, assembling a team of experts to piece together the chain of events that had led to the near catastrophe. They worked closely with Rolls-Royce engineers, Airbus designers, and Qantas maintenance personnel, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for answers. The damaged engine was carefully disassembled and scrutinized, its shattered components meticulously analyzed. Metallurgists examined the fractured stub oil pipe, confirming the microscopic flaw that had triggered the entire sequence of failures. The ATSB's final report, released months later, was a comprehensive account of the incident, detailing the manufacturing defect, the cascading system failures, and the extraordinary efforts of the flight crew. But it was more than just a description of events. It was a blueprint for preventing similar incidents in the future. The report made a series of key recommendations, focusing on enhancing quality control during engine manufacturing, improving inspection procedures, and strengthening safety regulations for large commercial aircraft. Rolls-Royce was urged to implement stricter quality assurance measures to prevent similar defects from occurring again. Airlines were advised to conduct more frequent and thorough inspections of their Trent 900 engines, and regulators were called upon to review safety standards and ensure they were adequate to address the unique challenges posed by large, complex aircraft like the A380. The recommendations weren't just words on paper. They spurred real change within the aviation industry. Rolls-Royce redesigned the stub oil pipe, incorporating additional strength and redundancy to prevent future failures. Airlines implemented enhanced inspection programs, using advanced techniques like ultrasound and eddy current testing to detect even the smallest cracks or imperfections. Regulators tightened safety standards, requiring more frequent maintenance checks and enhanced pilot training for A380 operations. Beyond the technical changes, Qantas Flight 32 also sparked a broader conversation about safety culture within the aviation industry. It highlighted the importance of open communication, proactive risk management, and a commitment to continuous improvement. Airlines and manufacturers alike began to place greater emphasis on fostering a culture where employees felt empowered to report potential safety concerns without fear of reprisal. The legacy of Qantas Flight 32 extends far beyond the immediate aftermath of the incident. It served as a stark reminder that even in the highly regulated and meticulously engineered world of aviation, complacency can be deadly. It reinforced the critical importance of rigorous quality control, thorough inspection procedures, and a relentless commitment to safety at every level. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of Flight 32 is the story of its crew. Captain Richard Champion de Crespigny and his team demonstrated extraordinary skill, composure, and teamwork in the face of unimaginable adversity. They relied on their training, their experience, and their unwavering commitment to the safety of their passengers to overcome a series of daunting challenges and bring the crippled aircraft back to the ground safely. Their actions that day were nothing short of heroic, and they serve as an inspiration to pilots and aviation professionals around the world. They proved that even in the most desperate of circumstances, human ingenuity and unwavering dedication can make the difference between life and death. The flight, now often studied, served as a pivotal moment for improvements in crew resource management and emergency procedures. The industry revisited and enhanced training protocols, focusing on how to quickly assess complex situations, prioritize tasks, and communicate effectively under immense pressure. Simulation training became even more realistic, replicating the cascading failures and the sheer workload faced by the crew of Qantas Flight 32. In the years since the incident, the A380 has continued to fly safely, carrying millions of passengers around the world. The changes implemented in response to Flight 32 have made it an even safer aircraft, a testament to the resilience of the aviation industry and its unwavering commitment to learning from its mistakes. So, the next time you see an A380 soaring through the sky, remember the story of Qantas Flight 32. Remember the microscopic crack that nearly brought down the world's largest plane. And remember the extraordinary crew who fought against the odds to save 469 lives. It's a story of triumph over disaster, a story of human ingenuity and unwavering dedication, and a story that serves as a powerful reminder that safety in aviation is not just a destination, but a journey that never ends. The memory of that day continues to push the boundaries of aviation safety, ensuring a safer future for all who take to the skies.